12 minutes past the hour right now, so I don't know if you've heard of the multiple reports. Northeast Ohio is on Bigfoot watch with at least 6 encounters reported in just 5 days, and that's the latest update.
Well, many people on social media are asking, have you seen Bigfoot?
I have not.
No, I have not either.
Northeast Ohio is buzzing about claims that the creature is wandering around Portage County.
Who knows?
Steven Hernandez went to Garrettsville to see if he could track down Sasquatch.
Hello, my name is David, and I am a Bigfoot believer. Recently, there have been an increase in reported sightings in Ohio.
Bigfoot Society just received its 7th Bigfoot sighting in 4 days in Northeast Ohio.
In early 2026, thousands of people across Ohio reported so many sightings of a strange creature, sparking everything from panic to prophecies, that it led both skeptics and believers to question what's really going on. Why so many sightings now?
Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
My dog went flying through the air over the tree, and I don't know how it did it.
Okay.
Deep in Bigfoot territory. Episode 41, Bigfoot in Ohio. This is a Squatch Mafia documentary. Welcome to today's episode of Bigfoot Territory. In today's episode, we are going to take a deep dive into the history of Bigfoot in Ohio. We will explore the most famous Bigfoot stories and incidents coming from the Buckeye State, like the Ohio Grassman, the Minerva Monster, and the Ohio Howl. We will also take a look at the most recent wave of Bigfoot encounters coming from Ohio in March 2026, and we will explore the classic hotspots of Bigfoot activity in the region. So let's jump into today's episode and start our journey into the remote and rural corners of the Buckeye State in search of Bigfoot in Ohio. When people think about Bigfoot, Ohio isn't usually the first place that comes to mind. But in reality, Ohio is known for hundreds of reports spanning decades, and a history of Bigfoot sightings reaching back centuries. According to the BFRO, Ohio ranks as the 4th state with the most Bigfoot sightings in the nation. And the Buckeye State could indeed very well be prime Sasquatch habitat. The Appalachian foothills in eastern Ohio are dense with forests and crisscrossed by streams and rivers, providing cover and water sources. The central and western regions of the state, with their vast farmlands, feature significant pockets of wooded areas that could serve as corridors for a large mammal moving undetected. Southern Ohio features some of the most prominent hotspots of Bigfoot activity, like Salt Fork State Park. In the north, Ohio borders the Canadian province of Ontario, along the vast shoreline of Lake Erie. Ohio's forests are rich with potential food sources for large omnivores. Deer, turkey, and other game are abundant, as are a variety of plants, berries, and nuts. Ohio's southern border is formed by the large river that gave the state its name, the Ohio River. The word Ohio originates from the Seneca word Ohio, meaning great river or large creek. The history of Bigfoot in Ohio goes back many centuries and begins with the various native groups home to the region, who already spoke of a race of bipedal ape men living in the forests and grasslands long before the arrival of the first Europeans. The Ohio River Valley was home to native settlements for many thousands of years. Around 1000 BC, the Adena culture erected one of the most famous and notable remnants of native culture in the region, the Great Serpent Mound, located in Adams County. From the 16th and 17th centuries on, native history in the region was dominated by war and conflict. After the Beaver Wars in the mid-17th century, the Iroquois claimed much of the Ohio country as hunting grounds. Following the devastation of epidemics and war in the mid-17th century, which largely emptied the Ohio country of indigenous people, the land gradually became repopulated by the late 17th century, mostly by Algonquian-speaking groups. After the War of 1812, when native peoples suffered serious losses, such as at the Battle of Tippecanoe, most native tribes either left Ohio or were forced to live on limited reservations. By 1842, all remaining native peoples had been forced out of the state. The native history of Bigfoot in the region that is today Ohio is one of the richest and most fascinating in the United States. In particular, the Shawnee, the Delaware, and the Adena have a vast collection of stories and myths that speak of wild men, giants, and wild, hairy people dwelling in the forests and roaming the vast rural landscapes of the Buckeye State. The Adena culture is probably the oldest native culture in the Ohio Valley, where the Adena settled around 1000 BC. Today they are mostly known for their massive mound building and earthwork structures, of which the Great Serpent Mound is the most famous. The stories and myths surrounding the Adena are filled with giants and supernatural beings said to have lived in the area, some of which are said to have hunted and eaten humans. The Adena themselves had no written language, so most of what is known today about their culture was reconstructed through archaeological digs. From the late 16th century on, various groups of the Shawnee tribe used parts of the Ohio Valley as their hunting grounds and had scattered settlements in southern and central Ohio. Their mythology speaks of two creatures that both appear very similar to modern-day Bigfoot legends. One is the so-called Midnight Whistler, a creature said to roam the forests of the region at night and emit a high-pitched whistle or scream to scare off hunters. The Midnight Whistler is said to be extremely territorial and was known for attacking wanderers or hunters who had accidentally entered its territory. The distinction between demon and flesh and blood creature seems to be blurry when it comes to the Midnight Whistler. It is not clear whether the creature was understood as a kind of ghost or demon, or as a being of flesh and blood. The other notable figure from the mythology of the Shawnee of Ohio is the Misingwa, a creature said to inhabit the forests of the region and understood as a guardian or protective spirit of the land. It was traditionally said to live in sacred areas or places considered dangerous or extremely remote. The Misingwa is described as an upright walking, hair-covered, human-like figure. Some stories even describe broad shoulders, a lack of a visible neck, and immense strength. Both beings, the Midnight Whistler and the Misingwa, are said to be extremely dangerous. In some stories, the Misingwa even attacks or raids settlements of tribes that have sinned against the land or wild animals. The Delaware tribe arrived in the region in the late 17th century, as they were displaced from their traditional homelands along with other eastern woodland tribes. They mainly settled along the Ohio River in southeastern Ohio. The legends and myths of the Delaware speak of a creature they call Wemategunis, which is translated as wild man or hairy man. They are usually described as tall and fearsome creatures. In some stories, they appear as ghosts or monsters living in the forests. Delaware understood these beings as powerful, often dangerous forest-dwelling spirits capable of magic, such as vanishing or becoming invisible, rather than just large animals. Some interpretations consider them a distinct, sometimes aggressive, supernatural people of the forest. The history of Bigfoot in Ohio, documented by Westerners, reaches as far back as the 1700s, When European settlers arrived in the region, they too began to report encounters with strange and mysterious beings seen in dense woodlands where human activity was minimal. Settlers also often reported encounters along the Ohio River and in the Appalachian foothills. The descriptions of these beings were often those of a race of bipedal ape men, mostly referred to as wild men. The most famous Bigfoot story from 19th century Ohio is probably the so-called guerrilla attack of Gallipolis in 1869. In late January 1869, in Gallia County in southeastern Ohio, a man and his daughter were attacked by a large, upright walking ape as they were traveling through the forests near Gallipolis, Ohio. A newspaper account in the Hillsdale Standard reported a gigantic wild man covered in hair ambushing a father and daughter traveling by carriage. The beast dragged the father from his carriage, biting and beating him until the daughter threw a heavy rock at its head, causing the creature to flee into the woods. The man was severely injured. The being was described as a wild man, covered in hair and gigantic in height. Interestingly, the small town of Gallipolis made it a second time into the history books of cryptozoology and high strangeness. Gallipolis is connected via bridge to the small town of Point Pleasant in West Virginia, on the other side of the Ohio River. In 1967, one of the most deadly and tragic bridge accidents in the history of the United States hit the two communities, as the Silver Bridge collapsed into the Ohio River, and 46 people lost their lives. This tragic accident is widely known in the world of the paranormal, as it marks the first appearance of the notorious so-called Mothmen. Legendary author and researcher John Keel linked the Mothman phenomenon to wider concepts of high strangeness and beings he named ultra-terrestrials. The Mothman even got its own Hollywood movie, in which Richard Gere portrayed a character based on John Keel. Countless Bigfoot stories and incidents come from rural Ohio in the late 19th and the early 20th century. In the summer of 1930, a creature that became known as the Norwalk ape terrorized the town of Norwalk and nearby communities in Huron County in northern Ohio. Dozens of sightings of the Norwalk ape were reported, and numerous articles about the creature were published in the local press at the time. The being was described as a large, upright walking chimpanzee, and it was seen lurking around houses and farm fields in the region. In one case, it was reported that the creature entered the lonely farmhouse of a couple and invaded their kitchen before returning to the nearby forest. The Norwalk ape's fate was ultimately as mysterious as its origin. It was never caught or killed and simply stopped appearing in newspapers after 1930. In the 1950s and 60s, a Bigfoot-like monster named Orange Eyes in local folklore was reportedly encountered numerous times around the Mill Lake Reservoir in central Ohio. The most famous Bigfoot case from modern-day Ohio is very likely the Minerva Monster from Stark County in northeastern Ohio. While the Minerva Monster is today mostly linked to a wave of encounters in the summer of 1978, the case is closely connected to the Caton family, who bought a farm 2 miles outside of Minerva in 1964. A few years after the family bought the property near a forest close to Route 30, they began to notice strange occurrences on their land and in the nearby woods. Initially, the family thought a hermit was living in the forests behind their property, but from the late 1960s on, family members began to have encounters with a strange creature. Stones were thrown at the house at night, and the police were called to the Catons' property multiple times. Over time, the situation became increasingly disturbing for the family, as the creature regularly began to peek into the windows of the farmhouse at night. According to the family, stones were thrown at the house for years. On one occasion, one of the family's teenage sons was attacked and bitten on the property after he had chased the creature. Also, the family's dog, a German Shepherd, was found with a broken neck one morning. The being became increasingly terrorizing, not only to the Catons, but to the entire region. Many residents of Paris Township and the community of Minerva had encounters with the monster. Many residents called the police because the being was staring into their windows in the evening hours and at night. Local reporters and law enforcement believed the Catons and the numerous other eyewitnesses. The events peaked in the summer of 1978 as dozens of monster hunters camped in the forests around Minerva, after a series of articles about the monster were published in the regional press. The monster became part of the local folklore, and according to members of the Caton family, the activity of the Minerva Monster has never really stopped to this day. Another fascinating piece of evidence for the existence of an unknown cryptid in Ohio is the Ohio Howl, recorded by Matt Moneymaker in late autumn of 1994 in Columbiana County, Ohio, near the Ohio River. Let's listen to the Ohio Howl from September 1994. See the links in the video description for a comparison of the Ohio Howl with other alleged Bigfoot howls from Alaska. A local name for Bigfoot in Ohio is the Grassman or the Ohio Grassman, and its origin is uncertain. The origin of the term Ohio Grassman is debated today. Some say the name Ohio Grassman goes back to the first European settlers in the region, who claimed to have seen Bigfoot-like creatures in the tall grass of the Ohio River Valley, and then used the name as a sort of boogeyman-type figure to scare children away from playing in the wilderness. Others say the term is even older and goes back to the native tribes of the Ohio grasslands, who told European settlers about a race of bipedal ape men living in the remote parts of the region. The term became popular again during the mid-90s, as research groups in the Akron area found some sort of Bigfoot nests, igloo-shaped structures made of large sticks woven together with smaller sticks and covered in grass, branches, and leaves. These structures, made from interwoven branches and grass and big enough for 3 grown men to sit in, are typically found in areas with a high concentration of sightings and are considered to be evidence of the creature's presence. Today, the biggest hotspots of Bigfoot activity in Ohio appear to be in the southeastern part of the state, where the foothills of the Appalachians remain a hotbed of activity, particularly around Salt Fork State Park in Guernsey County, throughout the vast wilderness of Wayne National Forest, and across the rugged terrain of the Hocking Hills region. Further north, reports continue to come out of Mohican State Forest in north-central Ohio, as well as from the dense, often overlooked corridors of Cuyahoga Valley National Park in the northeastern part of the state. See the links in the video description for Bigfoot encounter videos from Cuyahoga Valley National Park and other hotspots in Ohio. So, a massive number of eyewitness reports and encounter stories are still coming out of Ohio to this day. For example, Squatch Mafia subscriber Tim reported an encounter from April 2012 in Jackson County, Ohio, with what he described as a big, hair-covered and pissed-off biped that chased him at night. Countless other encounters have been documented. The biggest flap of Bigfoot activity in Ohio in recent years occurred in early March of 2026, as numerous encounters were reported in northeastern Ohio, specifically in Portage County. The reports began on March 6 and continued until March 10. At least 8 encounters were reported over these 4 days. Most eyewitnesses described an extremely tall, Sasquatch-like creature covered in dark brown or black fur, while others reported a smaller being, around 6 feet tall. The known sightings began on March 6 near Mantua and ended on March 10 near Lake Milton, so it appears that the creature, or group of creatures, moved eastward. All encounters occurred in forested or extremely rural areas. While various mainstream media outlets reported on the Ohio Bigfoot wave of March 2026, most of the first-hand documentation can be found on the Bigfoot Society YouTube channel, which also speculated that the reported creatures likely used the Headwaters Trail Greenbelt as a corridor for traveling east. Interestingly, the flap of early March 2026 occurred at the same time as multiple meteor showers over northeastern Ohio, which ended with a massive fiery meteor over Lake Erie on March 17th. As far as it is known, no videos or photos were captured during the flap in March 2026, so all alleged videos pushed by various hoaxers are obviously fake, while this clip here appears to be one of the best fakes from March 2026.
Holy shit. That's the thing people were seeing in Mantua.
So the Bigfoot stories coming from Ohio appear to be endless, and we will surely return to the Buckeye State in the future. Good books on Bigfoot in Ohio are Adams County Bigfoot, written by researcher Jay Vernon and published in 2022, as well as Bigfoot in Ohio, Encounters with the Grassman, written by Christopher L. Murray in 1997. What is your opinion on Bigfoot in the Buckeye State? Have you encountered something strange in the forests of Ohio? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button if you have enjoyed this episode of Bigfoot Territory. Subscribe to the Squatch Mafia channel at YouTube for more videos on Bigfoot and Sasquatch. Check out Squatch Mafia at Patreon and TikTok for extra content. Thank you for watching.